Passenger from Crewe by Frederick Cowles. "Damnable," said Mr. Timmins to the guard. "I repeat that it is damnable to run a train from Crewe to Manchester without a restaurant car." "But, sir," explained the guard, "it is Sunday, and very few trains have restaurant cars attached on Sundays." Mr. Timmins snorted loudly, settled down in a corner of the carriage, and ensconced himself behind his newspaper. The train steamed slowly out of the station, and he caught a glimpse of the lights of Crewe shining through the damp mist of a December night. The newspaper, like most Sunday newspapers, was sensational. The wife of a murderer who had been executed during the previous week was telling the public what a charming man her husband really was. An actress who had been 3 times divorced was making a passionate plea for return to the old ideals of family life. And there was an article by some quack about thought forms, something to do with spiritualism or ghosts. Mr. Timmins snorted again and cast the paper aside. It was then he noticed his fellow passenger. Strange that he hadn't seen the man get in. Must have got settled whilst he was talking to the guard. He stared rudely at the stranger, but the man appeared to be asleep. He was middle-aged, bearded, and fairly well dressed. Yet he did not look to be the sort of person who should be travelling first class. Mr. Timmins resented his presence, but resigned himself to making the best of the situation. Perhaps his fellow passenger would awaken before long, and they could have a chat. Another quarter of an hour passed before the stranger stirred, and then he opened his eyes and looked straight into Mr. Timmins' own. And Mr. Timmins received a shock. He found himself gazing into eyes as black as the night, eyes that held an expression of such hopelessness and despair that he felt himself to be looking into the depths of hell. Mr. Timmins turned his eyes away and coughed gently. Then he said, "This is a dismal journey on a Sunday." "It is always dismal," answered the man, and his voice was like his eyes, lonely and sad. "I have been complaining because there is no restaurant car on the train," volunteered Mr. Timmins. "There never is," returned the stranger. "And the carriages are old and dirty," went on Mr. Timmins. "I think it is about time they put some new coaches on." "I think so too," said the man. "I wish they would. It might be better for me. This carriage holds too many memories." "Whatever sort of memories can a carriage of this kind hold?" asked Mr. Timmins. "Not very pleasant ones, I do assure you," replied his companion. "But, if you like, I will tell you." "Well, if you know so much about it," answered Timmins, "I may as well hear the tale, and it will help to pass the time." "7 years ago," began the man in his queer, toneless voice, "a married woman in Crewe was in love with a Manchester commercial traveller. Her husband was a railway engine driver and was frequently on duty at night, so she was able to receive her lover in comparative safety. This state of affairs went on for nearly 2 years, and then the man tired of her. He stopped visiting Crewe and ignored her letters. At last, driven to desperation by his indifference, she wrote to her former lover and threatened to let his wife know all that had been between them unless he visited her again. The man was weak. His affair with her had been nothing but weakness and physical attraction, for at heart he was still in love with his own wife. He wanted to save her from any pain the story of his relations with the Crewe woman might cause, and so he went to Crewe. But the woman wasn't satisfied with just seeing him. She vowed that she had told her husband everything, and that her lover must take her away. She promised that, Unless he did so, he would be cited as co-respondent in divorce proceedings, and that the only way to avoid publicity was to run away with her. The poor, weak man was caught. He hadn't sufficient character to face the matter out and to tell his wife of his indiscretion, so the woman from Crewe and the man from Manchester went away together. For 6 months they lived in London, and the man soon discovered her true nature. She let him know the real meaning of hell upon earth. At last, all their money was gone, and then she began to talk about returning to her husband. "He will have me back, I am sure," she said. "I shall tell him that I have been in the south suffering loss of memory. You poor fish, can easily think of some tale to tell your wife." So they went back to Crewe. It was a Sunday, and he read a weekly newspaper just as you have been doing. In the centre page was a headline, "Terrible Manchester Tragedy. Deserted wife murders her children and commits suicide." It was his own wife who, driven mad by his heartless desertion, had killed her 2 children and taken her own life. The man kept the information to himself, but all the way to Crewe he was plotting revenge upon the woman who had brought so much unhappiness into his life. When they arrived at Crewe, he noticed that this very train was almost ready to depart, and he also saw that the woman's husband was the driver. With no real scheme in his mind, he hustled her into the train, saying she must come on to Manchester with him. Before she realised what was happening, the guard's whistle blew, and the train steamed out. How she reviled him when she found it was too late to alight. It was between Wilmslow and Stockport that he suddenly set upon her, knocked her unconscious with his walking stick, and then threw her body from the train. He dropped it carefully, so that it should fall under the wheels and not roll clear. Then, standing on this very seat, he fastened his braces to the luggage rack and hanged himself with them. His dead body was swinging against the window when the train steamed into Manchester. "Terrible! Terrible!" stammered Mr. Timmins. "But how do you know all the details of this ghastly tragedy?" "I was the commercial traveller," said the stranger, as he slowly disappeared. Thank you for listening to Passenger from Crewe by Frederick Cowles. If you have enjoyed this audiobook, please consider subscribing and leaving a like to help in the making of future audiobooks.